Hello everybody, welcome to Voices of Friedreich Ataxia. Our goal is to raise awareness and funds to cure Friedreich Ataxia. Today we will talk Mystery Girl by Ashley Dolby. Everyone's story with Friedreich Ataxia, FA, is so very different, but the journey to reach diagnosis ends up sounding very similar. Mine started a long time before I was diagnosed 5.5 years ago. I had just turned 28 and it was considered late onset diagnosis. By this time, I had had symptoms for probably close to 10 years, maybe even more. It wasn't enough to investigate at first. I was a clumsy teenager but still played competitive sport. I was actually a very good tennis player for most of my teens but struggled as I got older. I knew I didn't have to run far and could easily cover the size of a tennis court, but looking back now, throwing a ball up in the air to serve often threw me off balance. So, like most things in my life, I learned to compensate and was okay having a weak serve if it meant I didn't have to look up too far and take my eyes off the court. I could easily dismiss this as being uncoordinated and was probably very good at hiding it. In high school, I needed a handrail to walk downstairs, but overall it didn't affect much of my life. I remember later at university in a lecture theater, I would pick where I sat based on the ease of navigating to the seat. I was never a sit at the back of class type person. I'd instead choose a spot that involved not going up or down more than 1 or 2 steps. An issue I hadn't come across at school was that lecture theaters had stairs without handrails. I could easily do 1, 2 was a bit of a challenge, anymore, and it was obvious there was something wrong with my balance. I must have still been playing tennis at about 19 because my coach recommended I go and see a podiatrist for my flat feet. I went there expecting to get orthotics, but he instead watched me walk back and forth, told me there was something wrong with my gait and straight out said I might have MS, so should go and see my GP. This completely shocked Mum and me and was probably the first time we thought this could be something a lot worse and maybe I wasn't just uncoordinated. After a referral from my GP, who assured us a podiatrist should never tell you that you might have MS, I saw a neurologist who ruled out MS and told me if I got worse to come back. I didn't go back for a long time. I finished university, moved to London, traveled and chose to ignore my symptoms getting worse. I knew I was in denial, I just wasn't ready to address what was happening. I even broke my ankle, couldn't use crutches and still didn't do anything about it. I remember sitting in the hospital with a cast on my ankle and they wouldn't discharge me until they were satisfied I could use crutches. I must have talked my way out of it. I was living in Melbourne and 26 before I willingly chose to go back to a neurologist. My symptoms had progressed to holding onto someone's arm for long distances, in crowds, shopping, or when it was dark. I could still walk unaided but had become really good at furniture walking. I saw a different neurologist than last time. I chose to see a neurologist who specialized in MS as I convinced myself after some impressive Google work, that I indeed had MS and the neurologist I saw years ago got it wrong. He spent a whole year trying to diagnose MS. I had multiple MRIs because he was sure the MRI had missed something. Each appointment I'd go back to get my results and was told my brain looked perfect. It didn't, he just didn't know what he was looking for. I had eye tests that looked at my optic nerve, nerve conducting tests, a lumbar puncture, and they all came back clear. That year was awful. It was a vicious cycle of feeling anxious, nervous, relieved, worried and annoyed. Just waiting and being told they didn't have an answer for why I had poor balance and struggled to walk. He eventually sent me to a professor because he just didn't know what more he could do for me. He'd even started calling me mystery girl because as much as my symptoms presented as MS, he just couldn't prove it. Was I medical mystery? Surely not. I was probably only with the professor for 10 minutes. He listened to my story, took one look at me and my test results from the past year and introduced us to the idea of FA. It only took a genetic blood test in the end. I'll never forget the day I was diagnosed. The professor didn't give us much hope. There was no treatment, no cure, and he recommended I buy a house without stairs. I remember leaving and saying to my mom, "Oh well, I've had a good life." After waiting for what seemed like forever for a diagnosis, it didn't take me long to get my head around it. Life wasn't going to be what I imagined, but I was determined to make the most out of life, and still am. Since then I've learned a hell of a lot about FA and myself and met some incredible people along the way. You can still live a great life with FA, it just requires a bit of planning, or a lot sometimes. Meet Ashley Dolby. My name is Ashley, I'm 32 and was diagnosed with FA when I was 28. I developed symptoms of FA in my late teens/early 20s. I live in Melbourne, work full-time and try to stay fit and active by doing Pilates twice a week. I regularly visit an acupuncturist and get remedial massages to help with the symptoms of FA. I'm also looking at introducing hydrotherapy into my exercise routine. Keeping busy has helped to keep me healthy and on my feet. This information was taken from FARA Australia with their permission. The link is provided in description.
Hello everybody, welcome to Voices of Friedreich Ataxia. Our goal is to raise awareness and funds to cure Friedreich Ataxia. Today we will talk A View on Meteorology from a Physicist by Terry O'Hanlon. Niels Bohr, a Danish physicist, is reputed to have said it's difficult to make predictions, especially about the future. He was one of the smartest men to ever have lived. I guess he had an enormous respect for weathermen. Well, for us FAers, predictions are what we seek most in the world. It's not hard to find out the list of things that'll go wrong with us. What is hard though is getting an idea of when. Unfortunately, the answers just aren't available. There aren't enough of us to have built a giant database yet with all our data so statistical analysis can be done. The only thing they'll tell you is that speed of progression seems to be linked to the lower of your two repeat numbers. The reason is variables. There are just too many. Going back to my earlier analogy, weather forecasts tend to be accurate a few days in advance. They'll give guidance up to about a week, but after that so many variables could have an impact that confidence in their predictions falls pretty rapidly. It's the same with predicting when progression will affect specific change for an FAer. This is a problem for two big reasons. The first of course is that when we ask what'll go wrong with me as my FA progresses and when are those things likely to happen, the answers we get are we can't be sure and we can't be sure. The second reason is that unless they can describe how your progression is expected to go, a drug company can't show that their drug changes that trajectory or by how much. And that's why almost every research project we FAers take part in which notes change over time has an element in its conclusions noting that what they measured might be useful as a biomarker. What they're suggesting is the confidence level they have that what they measure will change according to a predictable path as FA progresses. So far it's a bit like the weather, prediction seems to work fine short term but other variables have an impact in time so things become inaccurate. Identifying biomarkers that support prediction as FA progresses is important for many reasons. For example, robust biomarkers are of immense value as outcome measures for clinical trials, preferably double-blind placebo-controlled trials, 2 cohorts, one given the drug and the other a placebo and no one, not even the scientists overseeing the study, knows who is in which group. So long as the groups are big enough, the averages can reduce the impact of an outlier individual result. This information was taken from FARA Australia with their permission. The link is provided in description.
Hello everybody, welcome to Voices of Friedreich Ataxia. Our goal is to raise awareness and funds to cure Friedreich Ataxia. Today we will talk Learning to Grow Through What I Go Through with FA by Kendall Harvey. A few weeks ago, I fell and fractured my foot. The recovery process, thankfully, hasn't been too painful. It has, however, been unexpectedly emotional. The truth is, I am not at all surprised that I fell. My Friedreich's ataxia, FA, symptoms have been progressing quickly and felt insurmountable and undeniably disruptive lately. In recent months, my usual arsenal of tools and compensation methods, which I depend on to overcome my disability and live the life that I want, haven't felt like enough. Even with my walker, I have felt unsteady and unsafe. My fatigue is the worst it's ever been. My arms have gotten weaker and less coordinated. In short, my disability is noticeably progressing despite all of my efforts, and I am overwhelmed by it. My fall and the resulting foot fracture felt inevitable. I am thankful it wasn't worse. As I recover from my fracture, people keep encouraging me by saying, "Don't worry, you will be back to normal in no time." While I appreciate their encouragement and faith in me, the sentiment is having the opposite effect than desired. I'm realizing that I don't want to be like I was before, and the fact that my before is the better I'm striving for is incredibly disheartening. What I desperately want is to be all better. No broken foot, and more importantly, no FA. I want the cause of this fall to heal and become nothing but a memory, just like the effect. I have the unrealistic expectation that, as I recover and relearn how to walk, I will just keep recovering, surpassing where I was before my fracture, and be a normal, healthy, non-disabled 34-year-old, not a woman who struggles to stay on her feet, even with constant assistance. In reality, I probably won't even return to where I was before my fall because of the relentless nature of FA. While this injury hit the disruptive pause button in my life, my FA symptom progression did not pause. If anything, it will have sped up because I haven't been able to do my daily workouts, weekly physical therapy, and basic, active duties. I have been struggling to find motivation to rally around as I tackle this recovery. I have settled on the saying, "Grow through what you go through." Yes, I am going through an unfortunate fracture recovery. Yes, I will continue to go through FA symptom progression. But I can grow through that. While I am increasingly losing control over what my body goes through, I can grow in other ways. I can grow my resilience, resolve, emotional depth and awareness, intentionality, prioritization skills, and sense of humor. No, I won't experience super healing while I put in the work to recover from this fracture, and suddenly become a person without FA, but I can find ways to grow through this experience. I just have to look for those opportunities and seize them. Kendall Harvey is a FA patient and this information was taken from Team Kendall with their permission. The link is provided in description.
Hello everybody, welcome to Voices of Friedreich Ataxia. Our goal is to raise awareness and funds to cure Friedreich Ataxia. Today we will talk. It's only a phone. It lets me be smart. By Terry O'Hanlon. According to Deloitte, smartphone penetration in Australia is at almost the highest level in the world, at 88% in 2017. They're so useful, I reckon penetration among FAs should be 100%. Here are just 3 apps I have on my phone that are particularly useful considering that I have FA. There are lots of different versions of each of these. You should be able to find one that's free. Flashlight. Humans primarily use 3 functions to balance. 1. The vestibular system, the 3 interlocked, liquid-filled little rings inside our ears. 2. Feedback from whatever part of our body is in contact with the ground, usually our feet. And 3. Eyesight. With FA the first 2 deteriorate quite dramatically, so we tend to rely disproportionately on sight. If your mobile phone has a flash, you can install an app that controls it as a flashlight. So long as you have your phone with you, you'll always have access to light. This is invaluable. Personally, I have my phone on a lanyard around my neck, so I can have a light on and 2 hands free if needed. Heart rate monitor. Dr. Lynch says that when death is caused by FA, in more than 65% of cases it's directly attributable to heart complications. The 2 complications most common in FAs are 1. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, thickening of the walls of the heart, and 2. Tachycardia and/or atrial fibrillation, irregular heartbeat/heart rate that goes bananas from time to time. The good news is that because heart complications are an issue for so many non-FAs too, there's lots of care available. FAs who attend the Brisbane clinic will be having an annual echocardiogram, where they monitor for cardiomyopathy, and perhaps also 24-HR Holter monitoring, where they monitor for tachycardia and/or atrial fibrillation. It's worth installing a heart rate monitor app on your phone, so if ever your heart feels like it's racing you can check if it's really so, and be able to tell your cardiologist at your next appointment. Sound level app. The hearing issue most often experienced by FAs is difficulty isolating a sound, like the voice of someone you're having a conversation with, when in a noisy environment. Again, we're fortunate that high levels of ambient noise are increasingly being recognized as hazardous to all, and there are apps available to monitor the situation. My favorite is Soundprint, which not only lets you monitor where you are but also post a note for other users. Consequently, there are results already posted by users all over the world, including Australia, that you can check before you go out. This information was taken from FARA Australia with their permission. The link is provided in description. Hello everybody, welcome to Voices of Friedreich Ataxia. Our goal is to raise awareness and funds to cure Friedreich Ataxia. Today we will talk. What I learned at the FARA Scientific Symposium 2017 Part 1. By Terry O'Hanlon. I'm not a scientist, nor a medical researcher. I'm just a normal FA'er. I was invited to the symposium as part of a patients panel, a Q&A session for researchers who might work in a lab and might interact only with FA cells, to meet and understand real FA'ers, the people who'll benefit most directly from their work. To be there was humbling but rewarding. It's amazing to appreciate the range of brilliant minds, all approaching the challenges of FA from different perspectives. There was much detail I couldn't hope to understand, but I understood the wide range of areas they were working in or on. So, forgive me for what I just didn't understand. Here's a summary of what I think I did. The thing we probably all know about FA is that it's genetic. What I'm always impressed by is how the explanation seems so straightforward. Your gene is like an instruction book within each cell, and the result is production of protein appropriate to that cell's function. The problem in FA is that there's a repeat, GAA, at one point on the gene, FXN, and that causes confusion, like if a single page in an instruction manual was there 1,000 times over and you had to read every page before doing a job. If the problem's so well understood, might the solution be easy to find? Unfortunately, it's not that simple. Our genes are in every cell in our bodies, and each of us has as many cells in us as there are stars in the universe. And while the full gene might be the same, parts of it are inactive in different kinds of cells, which is what makes them bone cells, heart cells, etc. If we correct, a gene in one cell, we want to be sure that change continues as the cell divides and reproduces, ideally that it spreads to the genes in other cells too. There is one branch of work being done to reverse engineer cells back to stem cells. That way, if a way can be found to correct the gene problem, the cells can be directed again to specific tasks like heart, cerebellum, dorsal root ganglia, etc., basically the parts where FA impacts most severely. Do you remember the original Ghostbusters movie? Early on, Dr. Spengler says they should never cross the streams of whatever comes out of their guns. At the climax of the movie he shouts that that's exactly what they should do. Well, there was a presentation about fixing FA genes which included something about reversing polarity that reminded me strongly of that. It was mostly about viruses though. The polarity bit seemed to be about the new instruction page that will replace the repeated pages that are the FA problem. The presentation was about identifying the right virus to carry this repair kit into the cells. Viruses are pretty good at doing this, after removal of their dodgy bits, but in many cases the body spots them and the immune system gears up to do its antiviral stuff. In a few experimental cases things pushed too fast with fatal consequences, so progress now is slow and very careful. The most recent and promising route involves AAVs, which are so small they don't provoke immune responses from the body. They're very simple viruses though, tending to deliver their payload then die off, so whatever they're given to carry and deliver must be perfect and work first time. When they're doing test drives of stuff like this, they include also a gene alteration that'll make the impacted cell glow phosphorescent green, and I'm left with an image in my mind of a whole human organ glowing solid green. Key takeout: it looks like they've identified the right tiny virus and the right instruction book alterations. They're getting close to identifying a cure for FA, although there's still lots of work to be done to make sure there aren't unintended consequences. This information was taken from FARA Australia with their permission. The link is provided in description.
Hello everybody, welcome to Voices of Friedreich Ataxia. Our goal is to raise awareness and funds to cure Friedreich Ataxia. Today we will talk What FA and Motherhood Have Taught Me. By Kendall Harvey. When Friedreich's Ataxia, FA, came into my life in 2013, I thought all the hopes and dreams I'd held would be wiped out. I planned on being a fun and adventurous wife and, God willing, a mother one day. Instead, I had to face the harsh reality that I would live a progressively disabled life that would slowly break the hearts of my friends and family. But I took a season to mourn, to adjust and refocus, and to learn everything I could about FA and my specific prognosis. And then my husband, Kyle, and I decided to start a family. The wonderful start to that family, my dear son, Brooks, just turned 7. I've been so overwhelmed with love and gratitude for his role in my life that I couldn't let this birthday pass without sharing a tribute to my journey through motherhood. Brooks fulfilled a lifelong dream that I thought FA had taken from me. 7 years ago, this beautiful, wise, observant, compassionate, enthusiastic, strong-willed blessing came into the world and changed my life. Becoming Brooks' mom gave my life a purpose again, a purpose that I feared I would never get to realize because of FA, and allowed me to define myself as a mom, instead of just a patient. Yes, I've lived with FA for 8 years, but the last 7 of them have been joyful, rather than tragic. I am so thankful for that. And being both a mom and an FA patient has taught me a few things about life that I think apply to most situations for both parent and patients. Motherhood with FA meant redefining me. The first thing I've learned is that it's never too late to redefine your vision. I thought I would be a mom who was always in the middle of the action, playing with my kids like I was a kid myself. But since I can't do that, I had to think of another way to participate, so instead I became my kids' biggest cheerleader. I am always there to wipe their tears, offer advice, sympathize, and help however I can. I may not be able to physically be a part of the action with them the way I wanted to be, but that doesn't mean I can't be a part of their experience. I've also learned that the things that seem insurmountable aren't, if I focus on one task at a time. When I thought about being a disabled mom, my mind jumped immediately to, how will I dance with my son at his wedding? But we are a ways off from needing to clear that hurdle, and there will be plenty of other bridges to cross before then. I am learning as I go, tackling motherhood task by task, phase by phase, and adjusting and adapting to my disability with each new stage of its progression. Setting manageable goals has helped me be the best mom and patient I can be. Here's my other realization: while we tend to be our own worst critics, moms are incredibly guilty of this. Chances are that we are doing a much better job in life than we think. Those of us battling a disability tend to get ourselves worked up, but it's always a good idea to take a deep breath, step back to gain some perspective, and then take an honest look at the situation before moving forward with a more realistic plan. I think talking things through with friends and advisors also helps. It's difficult for me to realize that there was a time when I had been prepared to let FA take away my dreams just because they suddenly seemed messy, hard, and scary. But that's life, even without FA. I am so thankful for the people and events that shaped me into who I was before FA, and for those who have walked beside me since. Motherhood hasn't been easy, nor has my disability. In a way, one has helped make the other. I don't know motherhood without FA, and I don't know FA without motherhood. It is messy and wonderful all at the same time. Kendall Harvey is also an FA patient, and this information was taken from Team Kendall with their permission. The link is provided in description.